The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he stayed close to the sea. One of the synagogue officials, named Jairus, was with him, saying, "My daughter is at the point of death. Please come lay your hands on her, that she may get well and live." He went off with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed upon him. Now there was a woman afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years. She had suffered greatly at the hands of many doctors and had spent all that she had. Yet she was not helped, but she only grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. She said, "If I but touch his clothes, I shall be cured." And immediately her flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Jesus, aware at once that the power had gone out from him, turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" But his disciples said to Jesus, "You see how the crowd is pressing upon you, and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. The woman, realizing what had happened to her, approached him in fear and trembling. She fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of your affliction." While he was still speaking, people from the synagogue official's house said, "Your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher any longer?" Disregarding the message that was reported, Jesus said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid, just have faith." He did not allow anyone to accompany him inside except Peter, James, John, the brother of James. So they arrived at the house of the synagogue official, and he caught sight of a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. So he went in and said to them, "Why this commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but asleep." And they ridiculed him. Then he put them all out. He took along the child's father and mother and those who were with him, and entered the room where the child was. He took the child by the hand and said to her, "Talitha koum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." The girl, a child of 12, arose immediately and walked around, and at that they were utterly astounded. He gave strict orders that no one should know of this, and he said that she should be given something to eat. The Gospel of the Lord.
In the Gospel, we hear two stories of healing, one inside of the other. Very common technique in the Gospel of Mark is to begin a story, then move on to something, a similar related story, then conclude the first story. And that happens many times in Mark's Gospel. It's pretty unique to him, and we have one good example of that today, the story of Jairus' daughter, who eventually gets healed. But in the middle of that story is the story of the woman with the hemorrhage for 12 years, who is herself healed. And so we look at the two healings. First, the woman with the hemorrhage. Mark notes that she's been sick for 12 years with her flow of blood, and she's been getting worse for those 12 years also. She's been to see lots of doctors. She's spent all of her money, and she's only gotten worse, so she's dying. She's coming closer and closer to death. She, in some way, has obviously heard of Jesus and who Jesus is, that he's some kind of healer, and so Jesus is her last resort. She's been to everything else, all doctors, all money. She's tried to do this on her own, tried to be independent about it, hasn't worked. Jesus is her last resort, so she goes to him thinking, "If I but touch his clothes, then I'll be healed." And after she is healed, she falls at the feet of Jesus, and she eventually tells him the whole truth. And Jesus says to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you." So that's the first story. The story around it that sandwiches that story is the healing of Jairus' daughter, although in some ways it's more about the faith of Jairus than it is about his daughter. Mark notes that Jairus' daughter is 12 years old. She's been healthy for 12 years. As opposed to the woman who's been sick and bleeding for 12 years, Jairus' daughter's been healthy for 12 years. So it's kind of a crisis that befalls her. Something out of the blue, unexpected. She's not been getting worse. She should be stronger and getting better in life. But she too is at the point of death. Jairus goes immediately to Jesus. Mark notes that he's a synagogue official. He must have some idea of who Jesus is and have heard of him. Whether or not he's a follower of Jesus, we do not know. Whether or not he's a good person, we don't know. But Jesus is his first resort. As opposed to the woman with the hemorrhage, Jesus was her last resort. After she had tried everything else, he tries Jesus first. Like the woman who's healed, Jairus falls at the feet of Jesus as well to do him worship. And he asks Jesus to touch his daughter. So just like the woman thought, if I touch the cloak of Jesus, I'll be healed, Jairus says, come and touch my daughter. Lay your hands on my daughter so that she may get better. Jesus eventually assures him, do not be afraid, just have faith. So he talks about healing Jairus' faith, just like he talked about healing the faith of the woman with the hemorrhage. And when Jesus does eventually get to the home and talk to Jairus' daughter, he addresses her in a similar way, little girl. Whereas he called the woman daughter, calls Jairus' daughter, he says to her, little girl, I say to you, arise. And so two stories of healing, and they come to Jesus for pretty much the same physical reason, because their health is in trouble, but really they come to Jesus by different paths. The first one, the woman with the hemorrhage for 12 years, she comes to Jesus only after she's been everywhere else. She hasn't been a follower of Jesus, and God is her last resort. So she tries Jesus thinking, this is it. There's nothing else after this. If it doesn't work with God, then there's nothing else that I can do. And importantly, her faith is healed, Jesus says. Jairus comes from a different path. He's been a faithful follower, a practitioner of Judaism for years. But he comes to Jesus in a moment of crisis. Everything's been going really good in my life, but all of a sudden, my daughter has gotten sick, and I need something for her. So he comes to Jesus in crisis. And I think for us, maybe from the lessons in the gospel, we and others often come to Jesus by those same paths, among many other paths as well. But sometimes those are the paths by which we come to Jesus. Maybe been away from God for a while, like the woman with the hemorrhage, trying everything else. Put all your faith in doctors, or maybe put your faith in psychologists, or put your faith in talk shows, or authors of self-help books, or in your university education, or maybe you put your faith in your job or in your paycheck, ultimately thinking, I can do this myself. I don't need any help right now. And all those things I mentioned are all good. There's nothing wrong with any of those things too, and they can work in conjunction with our relationship with God. However, some people, sometimes we only come to God as a last resort, thinking I have it all taken care of, things are going fine in my life, I don't really need God this way right now. Until eventually we say, you know what, it's not working. Everything I was putting my trust and faith in before, it's not working out. It's not happening and unfolding the way that I thought and the way I'd hoped for. I need to try something different. And I know that God's been out there in some ways. I know of Him, but I just haven't been there. I need to come to God. I need a relationship with Jesus Christ. I need Christ. I need to touch Jesus. I need to have Him touch me, to lay hands on me. I need a relationship with Him. The second way sometimes that we and others come to Jesus is out of crisis. You've been faithful to God for many, many years. You practice your faith. Sometimes we get a little comfortable in our faith, which can be okay. But then something crisis-like happens, and our thoughts can be, why is this happening to me, God? Why are you allowing this to happen? I've been good and faithful for such a long time, for many, many years. Why am I in the midst of crisis right now? And in some ways, it is a test of our faith. That is, it tempts us towards fear versus an abiding trust in God, where Jesus says, do not be afraid, just have faith, and your faith can heal you, so that our fears go away, and it's replaced by a strong, abiding trust in God is the hope. so that even when crisis does come into my life, it's okay. My faith might be shaken, but it's strong, and it's going to be unmoved ultimately. Ideally, as a mature Christian, we walk with Christ daily, right? Christ touches us, we hold on to Jesus daily. It's a strong and lasting friendship and relationship with our God. Ideally, that's how it is. Although, again, there are times when we're away for a while from the faith or away from a relationship with God, and there are times when crisis hits our life. As a mature Christian, as an adult Christian, we want to have a daily, consistent relationship with God, undoubtedly. That's how it should be for us ideally. In reality, there are some ups and downs of life, even if we're not away for 12 years or so, but there are some ups and downs in life, in the cycle of the spiritual life, and we do have crises from time to time. The idea and the hope is that we never lose sight or contact of the touch of Jesus with us, that we always seek to maintain contact with God, that nothing ever takes us away from that, so that our faith is strong, especially in the face of any fears that might come our way.